And we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox podcast. Once again, I've got Logan with me. How you doing, Logan?
I'm doing good, Jamie. Tongue twister, huh?
Yeah, I mean, we take a week off, and I lose how to forget. I forget how to talk. You know, it's weird. And I was fine before the show started, but anyway, we're back. It's there's a lot happened in the past 2 weeks. Quick catch up. I've had a chest infection for a little over 2 months now, and it pretty much affects every part of your life, and that includes speaking apparently. But I'm on the tail end of it now. Unfortunately, these chest infections can last for months, so I'm going to be feeling it for a while. But anyway, we're getting on with this. Anyway, Logan, before we get in with all the topics, have you been playing anything interesting these past 2 weeks?
Yeah, I've been playing a mix of things. I've been playing Proteus, which is a basically like a 90s-ified version of Doom Eternal, Doom 2016. Like kind of it's got like pixelated but also hyper modernized at the same time. You can have enemies be sprites like almost like N64 early PC type sprites, or you can have them be fully animated 3D like a basically like a Doom Eternal or Doom 2016. Depends on your preference. You can make it look like a CRT TV, the effects, or you can make it look, modern, however distorted you want. So gory and over the top ridiculous. I mean, it's a total blast. And the combat is amazing. The flexibility, the movement, it's a lot of fun. Been playing that. And then to kind of have a cool down period from that, I've been playing the Back to the Future DLC for Power Wash Simulator, which is really good and done well. You can go to the time train from the third film. You got the theater with the holographic shark. You've got, the DeLorean. You've got his delivery van, and then you have the clock tower. And on top of that, I beat the first Glass Masquerade game, which basically is a puzzle game where you take famous pieces of art across the globe and you turn them into these like clock things of like stained glass, and you have to put the pieces back together to recreate the art. And they go from super easy to incredibly complicated. So beat that, and I'm on the second one, and really enjoying it, man. How about you?
A mixture of things, a bunch of Starfield, playing a little bit of that each day. I've actually been really getting into Persona 4 Golden. I started playing that when I came to Xbox, but I take breaks with games, and this is a big problem with me playing video games. If I'm playing a long RPG, there's a big chance that I'm going to take like maybe sometimes 3, 4, 5 months off it, and then when I get back to it, I kind of forget where I was. But yeah, Persona 4 Golden, fantastic JRPG. I think more people need to play it. It's 4K 60 on Series X. It's honestly, I'm putting it out there. I'm enjoying Persona 4 more than 5. So I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but there's something about the themes and just the style of it. I think Persona 4 is just a better game. Persona fans might not like me saying that, but hey, it is what it is. I've also been playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. I have to say, like, we will be talking about the quote unquote Xbox tax later in the show, but I've had a lot of fun with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. It's not perfect. Don't get me wrong. It ain't perfect. But when I see certain outlets call it the worst Call of Duty game since, well, ever, that blows my mind because Black Ops 4 didn't come out with a campaign. It's just multiplayer and just the battle royale mode, Blackout. Like that's all that game is, and it got a higher score. And we all know that Modern Warfare 3 was originally going to be a premium expansion, and you can tell while playing this. But I have to say, some of the missions are just really fun. Call of Duty is really known for its linear mission design, and you have these over-the-top set pieces like vehicle missions and all this stuff, AC-130 missions. Those aren't really in the game at all. You have a few linear levels which are really cool, and then there's these open combat missions where you're basically given an open map, kind of, with a few objectives. And my worry going into it was like, are they going to get segments of the Warzone map and just call it, campaign missions? And some of it looks familiar, so I think there is some aspect of that, but it's fun. Like, I think Modern Warfare 2019, 2022, and then this year, like, the gameplay itself is amazing, and it's, in my opinion, probably the best gameplay in years. So like, I don't understand the whole like getting 4 out of 10 from IGN. That's a bit weird. And then let's talk about multiplayer. I've talked about this on the channel a lot. I've been out of multiplayer for about a decade when it comes to Call of Duty. I just stopped playing, but I was trying to get back into it last year because one of my mates still plays COD, and like, the gameplay is fun. And then this year you have all of 2019's, I should say 2009 Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2's maps, and they are incredible. You have this new gameplay, this new smooth gameplay in these nostalgia-filled maps. And the maps aren't 100% like one-to-one. There's like different routes in certain areas. So if you're on Rust, there's a tunnel that goes underneath the power, the power thing at like the top. But it's just really good. I don't understand the low scores. Maybe it's because some reviewers are out of touch. I did see an article by The Verge that IGN actually rushed out their review just to get it out in time, so they only played the campaign and just rushed through some of the multiplayer. But hey, if people like Modern Warfare 2019 and 2022 gameplay, and you'd like those old maps back in the day, this is an amazing Call of Duty. And people on Twitter have asked me, like, is the campaign good? It's okay. It's okay. But if you like me and you like going around in stealth and, taking 2 shots at all enemies, that's what I do in Call of Duty, 2 shots in the chest, John Wick style. And it's fun. It's fun. But you can tell it was an expansion. Fortunately, I didn't have to pay £70 for it. I got it part of a bundle, so technically I got it for next to free, thankfully. But hey, if people like Call of Duty Modern Warfare multiplayer and you like those old school maps and you want a little bit of a campaign, it's there, and I think it's fun. Logan, do you think it'll be getting COD at any point?
Yeah, I'll be getting it at some point. Like, honestly, I'm kind of waiting on a sweet spot sale. Like, 45 or less,
Yeah.
like, feels about right to me for that one. And I agree, like, multiplayer seems to be doing fantastic. People are loving it. The old maps are flowing good with the modernized appeal.
Yep.
And the campaign is what it is, but it's not the worst thing in the world. And they leave it in a spot where you can, obviously continue the story and add on stuff. And like the whole IGN thing, that could be a whole topic of itself, IGN itself. But the whole, oh crap, this game comes out tomorrow, I gotta rush out a score. Like, that doesn't help anybody. That just hurts the industry, reputations, and consumers. Because if you want to claim that you're so important that people should revere and kiss the ground where you walk about your scores and your process, and then you're rushing it out to get a score out there, and you're not even doing due diligence on at least playing through everything to a satisfactory amount, and you're just putting it out there and going, a 4. Yeah, we'll give it a 4. And, oh, by the way, that'll pay rent for 2 months because of all the traffic we'll get. It's like, I don't know. There's something odd about that.
Yeah, don't worry. I'll be throwing a bunch of media outlets under the bus in a bit, because when it comes to, look, the Xbox tax thing, it's a topic we have to talk about. But later in the show, I'm going to talk about the certain media outlets that are completely ignoring the big outliers. That'll be fun. But yeah, Call of Duty. Like, if you look at Modern Warfare 3, all of the Modern Warfare and Call of Duty accounts have been talking about Xbox tax. Like, they're now realizing, is this a thing now? because like you look at Black Ops 4, and I didn't buy Black Ops 4. I took part in the closed beta, and I thought it was absolute garbage fire, hot trash, rubbish, terrible multiplayer. The gameplay was awful. The map for Blackout was awful, and that got a higher score. I think that got like a 7 at IGN. Like, what were they thinking? And it's legitimately terrible. It got next to no support throughout the entire year, and I'd argue to say it's the worst Call of Duty multiplayer ever.
I actually skipped that one. That's the one COD I don't have of the modern ones.
Well, you should be happy you skipped it because it was terrible. It was awful. Like, what were they thinking? And I know people say like, oh, people don't play Call of Duty for the campaign, but the one year they didn't put out a campaign was the worst one. And I'll be honest, like, I know a lot about Call of Duty. I don't talk about it all the time, but like when it comes to the budget of a Call of Duty game, about 80% of the budget goes on the campaign. Yet about 5% of the people that play it. But do you know who do play the campaigns and talk about them? People like me on Twitter, people like you. A lot of people on social media.
I love the campaign.
Yeah, a lot of people on social media talk about the campaign, but who else plays the campaigns for Call of Duty? People in the media. The Call of Duty campaign, even though like 5% of people play it, the media cover that campaign. Like Infinite Warfare, I say is like one of the best campaigns for Call of Duty, alongside the first Black Ops game, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare. Like, those campaigns are legitimately great, and people need to play through them. And then you have that Call of Duty Black Ops 4 without any multiplayer. Sorry, without any campaign. It had no co-op mode. It was terrible, and it scored higher. And look, will I say it was Xbox taxed? No, I don't think when it comes to Call of Duty it was Xbox taxed. I think it was media outlets being lazy, trying to rush out a score. Because if you put out a score for a game where you've barely touched the multiplayer and you're just reviewing the campaign like that, bad form. And everyone online is loving the multiplayer. It's incredible multiplayer. It's so much fun. Because yes, you do have the people that are like, 15 to 25 that are zipping around like chipmunk on acid, like the way you see in those clips on Twitter. But there's also people like, 25 and above that are playing Call of Duty, and they're playing like normal people, and it's fun. And I think you have the new gameplay and the old style maps, and it actually works well for both kinds of players, because I'm able to hold my own in Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Even though there's people flying around in the air, like dressed up as like Nicki Minaj and stuff, like I'm still doing good. So it is pretty funny saying Homelander while playing Call of Duty. But yeah, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, like you said, you might get it if it's like $45 or something. Honestly, if this was like a $45 expansion, I'd be like, yeah, get it, 100%. Because the multiplayer is great. I've yet to try the zombies, but everyone's talking about how good the zombies is. The campaign is, like, it's fun. It's not the best, but it's fun. And like, I've played every Call of Duty campaign outside of Call of Duty Ghosts, Call of Duty Black Ops 3, and Vanguard. Vanguard was completely broken for me. But like, the worst campaign, I'd say Call of Duty 3's campaign was awful. Absolutely awful. And I think
it was pretty bad.
Yeah, it was bad. Like, and by the way, if anyone listening right now has a copy of Call of Duty 3 back on 360, the dude on the cover is facing the camera, shooting back at his own men. Nobody realized that until I told them. It's like, it's a really bad cover because the artist clearly had a vision in mind, but when they made it, they're like, oh yeah, the dude is firing on his own people. Like, bad cover, bad game, even worse multiplayer. But yeah, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. There's lots of deals going on for that. It's in a lot of bundles. If people want to play it, hey, it's fun. But is it the worst one? Hell no. Hell no. No. Like, and I'm one of these people that I do not like Black Ops 2. Like, I do not like Black Ops 2, and I think this is actually better. A lot of people won't like me saying that. Anyway, finally moving on from Call of Duty and what we've been playing. And yeah. You know what? We have a lot of topics. Before we get into all the stuff, a new game came to Game Pass today. Two, actually. I think one's called Rollerball, which is a third-person shooter where you're on roller skates. looks pretty cool. It's got a cel shaded art style. And another game that came to Game Pass today, literally a few hours ago, it unlocked, is Dune Spice Wars. Now,
Ooh.
this is a game I was port begging. I port beg games so hard on Twitter. A lot of RTS games, some JRPGs, and 90% of the time I get what I want. So like I'm going to continue port begging on Twitter. And it was weird because it was only announced for console about 2 weeks ago, and like I don't know why. Like because it's actually a big game on PC. It's a lot of people love it. It's Dune. What do you expect? It's a 4X strategy game, and it is going to be fairly niche, right? It is going to be niche, but at the same time, I think when it comes to consoles, we need more games like this on console. There is a PC centric game market on console. Like look at the amount of simulators on console. You have everything from Goat Simulator to Flight Simulator and everything in between. You have games where you're driving around on muddy hills. What's that game called? Snow Mudder, something.
Oh yeah, the one where you're on these super dangerous roads
Yeah,
with big trucks.
yeah. I absolutely
Ice Runners, I
yeah,
think, right?
something like that. I absolutely butchered its name, but people know what I'm talking about. Uh, but there's these like PC centric games people love on console, and I think putting something like that in Game Pass is going to let people play it without any risk because RTS games, I love them, but they are niche as hell, super niche. And given this being one of the biggest high profile RTS games, I'm hoping we will see more. I've port begged Homeworld 3, and I played Homeworld 1 and 2 back in the day on PC for probably over 1,000 hours. And I know for a fact that would not work on a controller, but I'm still going to port beg for it. But yeah, it's available on Game Pass. Dune Spice Wars. It's got a bunch of options in the settings as well, so you can turn off bloom, VSync, all that stuff. You can even change the texture detail from low to ultra. Bunch of like PC centric options you don't really see often in console games, which is really cool. But yeah, it's available now, and I think it's only 4 GB. It's a very small game. But yeah, people should check that out. Again, if you like Dune, it's there. You know what? Let's get in all the meaty stuff because there's a lot of stuff happening. Oh yeah, the Fallout TV series. We got some official screenshots. It actually looks really good. It genuinely does. I'll put this out there. But a month ago, I put out a list on Twitter of my top 25 favorite TV shows of all time, and a few people noticed that almost all of them are older shows because I think modern TV shows are terrible. Outside of
You're
Mayans,
not the only one.
yeah, like outside of Mayans MC, which is on Disney Plus, I do not like modern television at all. Outside of Mayans MC and Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, but like this genuinely looks good. It looks like they've been faithful to the source material. Like that's a big thing with video game adaptations. They can either go one way and be super loyal to it, or go another way and just use the name. And it looks like it's going to be full on Fallout. And I can't wait for it. I think that's going to be an Amazon Prime show. Are you looking forward to that, Logan?
Oh yeah, 100%. I was already stoked for it, and the new pictures from the Vanity Fair article are incredible. I can't wait. And something that from the interview is this is completely canon and in the Fallout universe. So unlike, the Halo show, which is, some people really like and some people really, really hate with all their passion. This is, 100% in canon, in universe. So everything matters. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, before we continue, we have the first super chat of the day by Nick W. Thank you very much for the 9.99. He says, Advanced Warfare had a god awful campaign. You know what? I actually forgot about that one. That was the one with Kevin Spacey.
I
That
actually thought he was fun as a villain, but I can hear your argument for that one.
Yeah, the whole press X to pay respects thing. Like, at least we got a good
Oh my
meme out of
god.
it. Like for memes, it was good, but outside of that, like I can't remember any set piece from that game at all. And like if
I
I
remember Dubai, I think. It might have been Dubai. It was huge skyscrapers in the desert. I remember that.
But if I can't remember like a single set piece from a Call of Duty campaign, then there's something up. Like I love those campaigns for the dumb over the top set pieces. Um, but yeah, Advanced Warfare. If people like to go back and play them, maybe keep away from that one. It was the problem with that game is it came out before the Xbox One X and it never got an upgrade, so like it looks really muddy still because Activision did a poor job optimizing that game at the time, not just visuals but performance. So I'd argue to say that's probably the worst performing Call of Duty game last generation. And yeah, the campaign. Oof. But yeah, anyways, thank you very much for the 9.99 Nick W. Awful campaign, and Kevin Spacey. That's a topic, different topic altogether. Anyway, the Fallout show. I think it's going to be good because you have like some really high profile actors in it, and you have people that like know what they talk. Like you said, it's lore. It's canon to the video games, which I think that's a big worry for a lot of TV shows. Like Halo, they could have went one way where the Halo TV shows could have been canon along with the games, but it's its own thing. Again, I haven't seen it yet, so I can't really talk about it. By the way, Halo, the television series, still hasn't aired in the UK.
That's
Why?
wild.
Yeah, for some reason, companies just take ages. I remember Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., we waited 4 months after the US to get season 1. And it happens with a bunch of TV shows. I think in the UK you have an option to get it on 4K Blu-ray or watch it on Paramount Plus, but I'm not getting Paramount Plus for just one show. Anyway, the Fallout show, it looks good, and I can't wait for it. Again, there's power armor in the series. It looks genuine. I think I actually saw Bryan Cranston in one of the screenshots, and in my opinion, anything he's in, it's good. So hey, should be cool. You know what? I wasn't going to talk about this, but I will quickly. So Mac Walters, Mac Walter from BioWare, has left BioWare. He's created a new studio called Worlds Untold. As you can tell, you could probably guess where I'm going with this. It's got a very sci-fi logo with a planet and all that stuff, and they just started a brand new AAA studio, and they're going to make, which looks like sci-fi RPGs. Now, bear in mind, there isn't any screenshots. We know nothing other than the fact that they have a bunch of ex-BioWare developers, and seemingly they're probably going to make another game like Mass Effect. Now, putting this out there, I'm already hyped. Like, I'm so desperate for new sci-fi, like Mass Effect style material that I'm willing to sell my soul for, a new RPG that we haven't seen frames of yet. But I've noticed a bunch of developers from BioWare in the past, including Casey Hudson. He has his own studio who are also making a sci-fi RPG. So I love the fact that you have these developers that, they've eventually left BioWare, and they obviously want to make more games in the same vein of Mass Effect. Hey, I'm all for it. Logan, what do you think?
Yeah, that's excellent news. I mean, BioWare at its height was like one of the, on you could count on one hand the most trusted and beloved studios out there, and it was one of them. Like they were, S tier, incredible at their height. And so the fact that now that, BioWare is kind of in a different place right now and trying to get its feet back, that a bunch of former legends and well respected devs from the studio have gone on to make their own studios and to make more games is awesome. And I definitely want to keep tabs on all of them and check them out because I love the games from those types of writers and those devs. And, a side note, this is another one of those counterpoints to the whole worry about consolidation thing. Like, we're not even talking about BioWare being consolidated or whatever, but like, see, people leave that studio and they make other studios. Like, this is how the industry works. And so that's just a whole nother counterpoint to that argument.
Yeah, I just want to put it out there. I want to give the studio some love because like those developers like super talented. Like people work. I think people that are working over at Casey Hudson Studio, Humanoid Studios, like they worked on Mass Effect 2. So like to me, that's already a good sell. But yeah, people should follow them. We're gonna see. I we're gonna be talking about Embracer and like the consolidation and stuff in a bit. But I think when it comes to like all these smaller studios that are popping up, I really hope they have great success, because we're in an age where I think people are getting really tired of the live service games, and a lot of them aren't really taking off. And hey, I think now more than ever, people are wanting more single player games. We've had an entire generation where we were nickeled and dimed every 5 seconds for microtransactions, and there's battle passes and whatever the hell they call them now. And I think, I always say people on Twitter just want more single player games. And you see these little studios popping up, these little new AAA studios, and they want to make AAA RPGs. That's just a good sign. And while we're talking about all this stuff, let's get all the Embracer stuff out of the way, because for the past 22 months, Xbox fans, in fact, not all gamers, have had to put up with talk of consolidation, monopolies, and all this stuff. And it's been, I've rolled my eyes every single time. And in the background, you've had this publisher, Embracer, buying up hundreds of developers, left and right, all over the place. And nobody's batted an eye. Because why? They make multi-platform games. And this is the big problem, is that people forget what consolidation and monopolies mean. Because they say multi-platform title and they don't think, oh, it's not a monopoly. No. Embracer owns, I think, 170 studios or something. And a lot of them have been laid off. They closed down the studio that made Saints Row. Whether people like Saints Row or not, that studio had put out great titles in the past, and because they put one dud out, they get closed. That's like, I've talked about the game industry not being sustainable. Like, that is not sustainable. Or you have one game that's a failure, and they close the entire studio down, putting 200 plus people out of work. It's crazy. And then recently, Embracer said, oh, they're going to sell off studios and literally fire more people, and we find out that Crystal Dynamics, the creators of Tomb Raider, they're firing people off from there as well. And today we find out that the studio behind the new Time Splitters game has been shut down, meaning no Time Splitters. And people have been begging for a new Time Splitters game for almost 2 decades. And then Logan, was it like 4 or 5 years ago when the new Time Splitters game was just announced on Twitter?
Yeah, basically they had a post and they're like, "Oh, by the way, we are we have the rights to Time Splitters and we're bringing back some of the original developers and we're refounding the studio." And yeah, so look for a Time Splitters announcement sometime soonish. And then all these years later, now it's, well, there's a good chance the studio's axed by Christmas. Not 100%, but from VGC today, it sounds like there's a good chance Free Radicals bye-bye by Christmas, which is just awful news.
Yeah, that's just terrible. And people have been wanting that game for so long. And I think Embracer, they screwed themselves. Like, people want to hate on Microsoft. I want to see all these media outlets, these hack media outlets, actually put some pressure on Embracer, because people have been talking about monopolies for the past 55,000 years about Microsoft buying Activision. No, cover Embracer. Embracer owns like 90% of the games that are going to be coming out the next like 2 years or whatever. And it's stupid. Like, look at all these other publishers like Ubisoft and EA and Activision, right? They all have these 1 or 2 specific games that release almost every year, and they sell millions. It pretty much keeps the entire company afloat. And sometimes they also have microtransactions, season passes, battle passes, whatever the hell. And you look at Embracer, and they have several different publishing arms under Embracer, and there's no cohesion between them all. People keep asking THQ Nordic for the new Metro game, but that's not THQ Nordic. You have the Time Splitters game, which wasn't under THQ Nordic, and people were asking about that. And people don't know what's going on. And they put out these like ports every year that are just like of older games, and I'm fine with that. It's some kind of game preservation, but they put out these ports for older games, They give people hope for new ones. Kingdoms of Amalur is a good example. They bought the Kingdoms of Amalur IP and game from EA, and they put out a remaster, which is very good. I think it's on sale right now. Then they actually put out a
And
new,
an expansion.
yeah, they put out a brand new expansion for a 10-year-old RPG, and people seem to really like it, and it gave people hope. It's like, is there going to be a sequel? And they just didn't follow through with it. Is there a sequel in development? Don't know. And for the longest time, like, Embracer doesn't have a big game that sells every other year. And where are they making the money? Like, as far as I know, Embracer's owned by a rich Swedish dude that was just buying up studios, right? Allegedly. Buying up studios because he liked gaming and wanted to have a great gaming publisher. And if people go back to earlier podcasts, I was saying, hey, support Embracer Games and Focus Home Interactive, because I think Focus Entertainment's an amazing company. But like Embracer, they don't put out these big games ever. And I've always wondered, like, where's the money coming from? And then they invested money into Lord of the Rings. They now own the Lord of the Rings IP, which is crazy. And then they had a deal fall through with Saudi Arabia, which apparently that was going to make them a lot of bank and pretty much keep them afloat. And you look at, like, if you go to, like, Google or anything and you look up Embracer games in the next 2 years, they are all these, like, little inky-dinky ports which nobody's ever heard of. And there's a few really cool-looking games there. You have the Gothic remake, which I think is going to be promising. But nobody knows what's going on with Darksiders, a long-running IP. And I don't know, I feel like Embracer is falling into the exact same trap as a previous publisher, THQ. THQ, back in the day, was spending way too much money on marketing. They put out the U-Draw tablet on the Wii, and the Wii had success with it. So what did they do? They actually made 2 million 2 million U-Draw tablets for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, and it tanked. Nobody bought them, and THQ actually stopped putting out games for the U-Draw tablet. So if you go back and buy a U-Draw tablet, I think there's 5 titles for U-Draw across all platforms, and eventually they're closing down studios. Darksiders was the only remaining IP, basically AAA IP for THQ, and it didn't sell what they needed it to. Homefront, shall I say, didn't sell what they wanted it to at launch, and eventually they shut down. They sold off everything. All their studios were sold off. All the intellectual properties were sold off. And who bought most of it? Koch Media, who is THQ Nordic now. So THQ Nordic, and I should say Embracer, is becoming THQ. They're going to be out of business in a few years. Hundreds, if not thousands, of developers are going to be out of work because they have been hilariously and sadly mismanaged over the past few years. And like, I just look at this and it's the U-Draw tablet all over again. They were spending way too much money on studios and IP, not putting out anything, and then they spent a year slightly hinting at a brand new South Park game, a AAA South Park game, and then when it got revealed, what was it? It's a snowball first-person shooter. I should say third-person shooter. And it's sad. I hate seeing a potential great publisher do this to themselves, and they've brought it on themselves. It's no one else's fault. The developers have been making the games they've wanted. They've been pushed in certain directions with some games, but yeah, Embracer, they've screwed themselves, basically. Anyway, Logan, what's your thought on this? Because I've been rambling for 10 minutes.
I mean, my thoughts pretty much echo yours. They're very much mirroring the rise and fall of THQ and how disastrous that was at the end. And then basically fire sale, all their assets sold off to a bunch of different people. Then Nordic bought them and bought the rights and merged and became THQ Nordic. And then THQ Nordic's part of Embracer, who also owns Quicksilver and then owns all this other stuff. And how it's allegedly, supposedly, someone who just really liked games and wanted to have a game business, which, hey, that sounds awesome to me. Like, if I was a billionaire, I think I would love to own gaming stuff too, or sports stuff, or whatever. But yeah, it's just not been handled well. And it seems like for a long time, their approach was basically like bargain bin IP shopping, like a whole bunch of stuff thrown into a clearance rack that was a name you somewhat recognized from the past. And you're like, hey, I can do something with this. And so you grab this. You like, oh, you found Time Splitters in there. People love that game. I'm going to grab that one. Or Alone in the Dark. Or, Gothic. You know, flashback, like all this type of stuff, like just names, like focusing on names instead of whether there was a strong desire or need for it. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm stoked for Alone in the Dark. Hope it comes out well. Time Splitters was one of the biggest announcements to me personally in years. So the fact that that studio is like on death's door is really, really troublesome to me. So yeah, it's just been a giant cluster, and the fact that they're now have the audacity to go, yeah, we royally, shot ourselves in the foot about this, so now we're gonna have to axe a bunch of jobs because we didn't know what we were doing, and now everything's in turmoil, and then you buy the Tomb Raider IP, and kudos on that move, like getting Tomb Raider and Crystal and stuff. You buy it for pennies on the dollar, and then you flip it in a weird way to where you share rights with Amazon for a time for some Tomb Raider stuff. Just made it unnecessarily complicated. And then while you're hemorrhaging money and all this other stuff, you jump into Lord of the Rings IP, which was incredibly complicated legal process and financially. It's just a whole bunch of bad decisions. And I really hope Xbox, even PlayStation, Nintendo, Valve, somebody steps in and buys the good studios because the writing on the wall for this is not great.
Yeah, I think Embrace is in a weird spot because they are following exactly THQ back in the day, and that like is something that like I witnessed it. I think everyone listening witnessed it, and it was like sad to see them go. But like all they were all gobbled up, all them IPs gobbled up by these different companies just under Embracer, and it's happening again. And I thought like, and they can have this for free, by the way, THQ Nordic and Embracer. The second they bought Tomb Raider, Eidos Montreal, Crystal Dynamics, Deus Ex, Soul Reaver, all those IPs, like people have been saying since, wouldn't it be cool if we get this remaster collection or that remaster collection, and like they should have been on that straight away. Because look at the past Tomb Raider games, the Tomb Raider reboot trilogy. People have been wanting next gen upgrades. They could have packaged a trilogy box set, next gen update, you know, and sell it like that. Or like Deus Ex Human Revolution. They could have put out a 4K 60 remaster of that. They didn't. They could have put out a next gen update and package of Mankind Divided. Didn't. They could have put out a Legacy of Kain collection. Didn't. And I'd say the Legacy of Kain collection is the most requested collection I actually see on Twitter. And they just did nothing with it. And as far as we know, there is a new Tomb Raider game in development. It's being co-published by Amazon Games. Cool stuff. It's going to be multi-platform. But seeing this happen to like one of my favorite studios is like heartbreaking. And yeah, I don't know what Embrace is going to do because they are clearly bleeding money. Their games don't make that much money. And yeah, it's sad. Before we continue, if you're enjoying the show, again, YouTube is great, but doesn't share all the time. So if you're enjoying the show, like, share, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. You'll be notified from the next video. All good stuff. Super chats are live if you want to support the channel and all that stuff. So yeah, it's sad to see THQ. I want to keep calling them THQ because that's what they've turned into. Back in the day, THQ, when they were marketing Saints Row, I think it was Saints Row the Third, they got out in like an entire like show center, and basically, filled it with props and all this stuff from the game, which I can't talk about on the channel, but they had props from the game, and they were just like flying media outlets out to like the showcase just to talk about the game from all over the world, and they were just pumping money into marketing. But I look at Embracer, and they spend clearly no money on marketing, and they put out these like ports of old games and then just let them die, and it's sad. I hope they can fix themselves, but I honestly don't know what could actually help them unless they put out one or two games that sell like 10 plus million copies. I can't see Embracer being around anymore in the next 5 years, if that. I hope I'm wrong, and I'd be happy to be wrong because we need more publishers. We really do. The reason I talk about Focus Entertainment all the time is because they own next to no studios. They do publishing deals with independent developers that do AA and AAA games, and the games they put out are weirdly consistently cool. Like last year, they put out Hard Space Shipbreaker, A Plague Tale Requiem, Evil West, and then this year they've put out Atomic Heart. What else? A few other games. They put out Atlas Fallen and all that stuff. And yeah, it's just it's sad. But anyway, we have the big super chat by Nano Polymath. Thank you very much. Love you on Twitter for £49.99. Thank you very much. He says intermissions, 2 sugars for me. Cheers. Well, thank you very much. Love the sarcasm on Twitter. Keep up the good work. And by the way, follow Nano on Twitter. Really cool guy. Is as sarcastic as me, maybe more so. But yeah, anyway, thank you very much for the $49.99 Nano. Wow. Wow. Anyway, thank you. Follow him on Twitter. Great guy. But yeah, Atlas Fallen was a recent game, and I've talked about this online, by the way. Notice that AA games on Twitter or like social media and media in general, AA games get low scores. Like RoboCop, people are loving it on Twitter, absolutely loving it. And I don't know, like you look at these publishers like THQ Nordic and all this stuff, and they mainly put out AA games, and I think maybe it's a media thing as well that isn't helping. Like Logan, do you see IGN, GameSpot, all these other media outlets even talk about AA games?
No, in fact, among other IGN things of late, they had that infamous video out there where basically they had some guys laughing about smaller games and talking about how, we don't, cover basically trash or stuff that nobody's heard of or cares about, or some of these smaller games, we only focus on this, or that. So basically, a whole bunch of ignorance and, bias there against, smaller titles and making it sound like they're not relevant, even though, the vast majority of the industry is AA or smaller. Like, yes, the ones you hear about, like, big time are, the God of Wars, the Halos, Gears of Wars, Forzas, Zelda, Mario. Like, those are the ones that get the most attention, but not every company is making those. It's, the power studios are. Everybody else is making smaller stuff. And so the fact that you would not even cover them or clown them on top of that is just, it's really ignorant.
Yeah, by the way, while you were talking, I was looking at it's Nacon that publishes RoboCop, and I just thought RoboCop is a good example because everyone on Twitter seems to love RoboCop Rogue City. I haven't played it yet. I know for a fact I'm getting it for Christmas, but like everyone seems to love that game, and I honestly think that's going to be one of the best selling games over Christmas. And it's a faithful first person shooter in the RoboCop universe. It's in law with RoboCop 1 and 2. We will pretend that there's no third film because it's awful. But people seem to love it. And Eurogame of all places said it's too faithful. Oh my.
Of course they would.
Yeah, that really made me cringe. Like everything has to deviate from the intellectual property now. It has to be completely different. But no, RoboCop. It's set in the 80s. It's set in Detroit, I believe, and it's meant to be a war-torn city in that universe, and it is in the game, and they've been faithful to it. So, but anyway, a bit of a tangent. I think that these publishers like Focus Entertainment and Embracer, they mainly put out AA games. And I think that AA games have a lot to offer. I really do. Like, look at last year, one of the most played games on Game Pass. I think it was the most played single player game on Game Pass last year. Was High on Life. That game is hilarious. It's incredible. The gameplay is fun, and in my opinion, it was one of the best games last year. And we don't see a lot of like if you have this like indie game where you play as this character made of a bunch of pixels, it can get all sorts of awards. It could be like heartbreaking and people love it and all this stuff. Or if you have a AAA game that's like the biggest thing ever and it has like the most like facial animations ever, it'll get a high score. But these AA games, it's almost as if they get less coverage and lower scores because they aren't either of the two. I don't know. I felt like maybe I'm like the only person that's realizing this, or not many people have talked about it, but AA games just get no love. And if you have these publishers that mainly focus on AA, nobody's talking about them. Again, IGN is probably the biggest outlet. I never see them talk about AA games at all. A few years ago, we got Terminator. I was going to say Terminator Isolation, Terminator Resistance. I think I was like one of the first people on YouTube that put out a review for it. Nobody was talking about that game. And thankfully now it has a fan base, and the fan base has followed it to RoboCop. But it is weird that AA games get no coverage. That's weird. I don't know. Anyway, we'll move on. But yeah, AA games. I think more people need to check them out. Like I mentioned, Evil West last year, Atlas Fallen. I will always hype up Hard Space Shipbreaker. That game is incredible. Another AA game, which is also in Game Pass. It launched in Game Pass in August, and that is Everspace 2. And that is literally one of the best games of the year. Like, Logan, did you buy that physically as well?
Yep, I got the steelbook with the soundtrack and everything. Love it. Great game.
Yeah, Everspace 2 is incredible. It has like we don't get space combat games that often, and we got that this year, and it's incredible. Highly recommend people play that. But yeah, Embracer. It's sad, but I think people need to show AA games some more love. There's a lot of cool games out there. Anyway, we'll move on. I was just looking. I might actually buy that U-Draw tablet because I'm still collecting 360 stuff. And speaking of 360 stuff, I wouldn't normally make something like this a topic, but we may as well because it could mean something. So Sarah Bond a few hours ago posted a picture on Twitter of the Xbox 360 logo, just out of nowhere, out of the blue, and it has people wondering, what does that mean? Because Sarah Bond has a tendency to like post things with meaning. In the past she used to post things like a bunch of emojis just describing a game, and you'd have to guess the game, and that was the meaning behind that. But it was a bit weird that today she posted an Xbox 360 logo. So now people are wondering, are we getting a new batch of Xbox 360 backwards compatible games? Maybe by Activision. All kinds of theories just because of a logo, but considering Microsoft invests in backwards compatibility and people are talking about backwards compatibility a lot, I think it could mean something. What about you, Logan?
Yeah, like it caught my attention immediately, and I was like, wait a minute, I know that logo. And yeah, like no context or anything, just like bam, 360 logo. And she is very, very shrewd and knows what she's doing when she posts stuff. And obviously, as Madam President of Xbox, people pay attention to what she posts. So posting a 360 logo it's definitely like, all right, now you have my attention. And so, what could it mean? It could mean a mix of things. It could be, we finally get that batch of 360 or OG, BC games from the Activision Blizzard library. Yes, they had put out a thing in the past that said, we've exhausted all, our licenses or tech or whatever. But, they had said that for in 2019. And then, they made this purchase of a publisher called Bethesda, which suddenly gave them a lot more IPs to work with and licenses and tech. And they brought those games and a whole bunch of others back a few years later for the 20th anniversary of Xbox. And I know they made that statement again, but then not that long after that, they acquired Activision Blizzard King, the largest independent publisher in the world. That gives you like 30 plus years of IPs and tech and other stuff, including some games that were, lost in basically licensing hell because you've got, Activision rights on something, with Bethesda rights on something, with Raven rights on something, with id rights on something, and all these things. Like you can now unite all this stuff and bring back like Quake 4 or Return to Castle Wolfenstein or Wolfenstein '09 or Hexen now, or bring back at the very least the Spyro and Crash games. You fully own all that. So to me, that could easily be the answer. Another possibility is, you remember a while back there was the leak about the Fallout 3 remake or remaster and the Oblivion remake. Could be, you know, putting two and two together, could be a tease for those. So, or maybe it's a combination of all those. Or maybe Sarah was just feeling, nostalgic and waxing poetic and put that. But if I were to bet or guess, I'd say it wasn't just a fun little whimsical post. There's meaning to that.
Yeah, before we continue, we have a $2 super chat by Hacky Sack. Thank you very much. He says Sarah Bond is teasing the return of Don Matrick.
Yes, bring him back.
Yeah,
Just kidding.
I think
Just kidding.
that would cause the ultimate reaction on Twitter. I can imagine returning like how CM Punk returned to the WWE this past week. Like,
Oh yeah.
that would be hilarious. I, I often wonder, like, what is Don Matrick doing these days? Like, is he planning like the downfall of another company, or because I think he worked at Facebook for a while afterwards, or Zynga. But yeah, oh my god, I think if you either Don Matrick or Phil Harrison, chaos, absolute chaos. Like, hasn't Phil Harrison like basically been destructible for PlayStation, Xbox, and Stadia? Like, 3 for 3. But yeah, anyway, thank you very much for the $2 super chat, Hacky Sacked. Don Matrick coming back would be. I can't imagine anything worse, to be honest. But thankfully, that won't happen. Then again, maybe I've spoke too soon. But yeah, the 360 logo thing. Like, look, we obviously could be reading too much into it. You could just be having fun. But when you like that high up at a company, people read. Like, look at Phil Spencer. He posts a picture of himself at a desk, or if he's in an interview, and people analyze the shelf, right? So now we look at tweets with logos and think, wait a minute, does that mean something? Because it could mean something, especially considering they do have backwards compatibility. There's been rumors that they are going to do Activision backwards compatible games, and there are games there. I think there's plenty. That I've made a video about 10 most wanted Activision games for backwards compatibility, 360 ones, and I'm just hoping. And we will actually link back to this topic in a bit when we talk about the Game Awards, which should be interesting. You know what? I'll mention this quickly. Logan, did you check out the new Suicide Squad gameplay?
I have not, but I've heard mixed things. What did you make of it?
Honestly, it looks fun. I think people are too like scared and put off because when the game was revealed, I think it was like back in April. Yeah, we got gameplay in April and it was going to release in May, and then it got delayed to February. and they put out a gameplay the other day. Honestly, I think too much gameplay. I think I've seen enough of that game. I'm actually sold. People see damage numbers and equipment stats, and they automatically put off. But the gameplay they put out for Harley Quinn and Captain Boomerang, putting this out there, it looked fun. It really did, and I think that's going to be one of those games that's in the vein of like a Crackdown, where it's just open world fun. Like, will the story be good? I hope so. It's set in the Arkham verse. Like, hell, it's Kevin Conroy's last performance as Batman. So I hope they do something special there. We get to see Metropolis for the first time in a Arkhamverse game, which is really cool. I think the initial reaction to the game and seeing damage numbers and loot put people off. But the weapons looked more character specific this time, because when we saw the game back in April, King Shark had a machine gun, Harley Quinn had a machine gun, Captain Boomerang had a machine gun. So like, it didn't seem like you were playing as different characters. But now, like when they showed Captain Boomerang off, it was using the boomerang pretty much the entire time. And plus, the movement looks really cool. I think people that maybe put off when they first saw it, maybe watch the new gameplay, because honestly, it looks fun. And I don't think all games need to have this, emotional, heart-wrenching story where you just cry yourself to sleep at night. Like, games can just be fun, I've put countless hours into Arkham Knight, and even though I think it has a good story, I think Arkham Knight is at its best is just for the dumb fun you can have. Just going around Gotham City as Batman, taking down thugs, dropping down on moving cars and taking them out. This just looks like dumb fun, and that's all a game needs to be sometimes. I'm putting this out there. I think I'm going to pick it up. Just based on, if I can't get a review copy, I think I'll pick it up because it looks fun. And yeah, and plus, I love the Arkhamverse. If this leads to more Arkhamverse games, maybe in a Green Arrow game or more Batman games or whatever, I'm all for it. But yeah, if people were on the hate train of, Suicide Squad game looks terrible, check it out. It looks pretty cool. I think people should give some more attention to it. And plus, it's Rocksteady. I'm putting this out there. Rocksteady have never made a bad game. So, who knows? And that releases in February. Anyway, quick update on Cyberpunk 2077. Phantom Liberty has sold over 4 million copies. It has a 20% attach rate, which is actually really impressive if you think about it, for a DLC for a game that came out 3 years after the game launched. And like that game is a story of redemption if you think about it. The game gets announced in 2012 with a really cool CG picture, a CGI video. I hyped it non-stop for like 8 years. The game eventually comes out. It's broken beyond belief, and we get a next-gen update about 1 year and 3 months after release. The game is fixed. It was excellent. I start playing with the next-gen update. It literally fixed the game. And then we get the 2.0 update with Phantom Liberty, which I still haven't played, but one of my close friends has told me like the game plays amazing now. The first-person shooting combat is great, and I wholly believe him on that. I can't wait to play it over like the Christmas break, but yeah, I'm happy for CD Projekt Red. They needed a win. They are an incredible studio. They made the Witcher games. We have more Witcher games on the way. There's going to be more Cyberpunk. There's rumors that we're going to get an Edge Runners Season 2 now because of the success of Phantom Liberty. I'm happy for them. Logan, did you get Phantom Liberty at all?
I have not, because I have a pretty extensive backlog at the moment. But once I plow through some of those, I do plan on picking it up.
Yeah, and the cool thing is that Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition releases in December, and it has the 2.0 update. It has the Phantom Liberty expansion. But the really cool thing is, if you get it physically, all of it is on the disc. So you can literally install it and play it offline if you want on Xbox, which is, I think, I've seen a lot of people ask for. So I think this might be one of the first next-gen only games, where you can install it offline with the DLC, which is really cool. And yeah, another good win for CD Projekt Red. It just came out that almost half of CD Projekt Red are working on The Witcher 4. And yeah, I think when it comes to this generation, at least the second half of this generation, we're going to see a lot of cool things from CD Projekt Red. Cyberpunk is a proven IP to them now, because even though it launched in that state, it sold like 20 million copies. It's been selling great since the next gen update, especially with the 2.0 stuff. It's always popping up in the top 10 in the UK. And I think it actually showed up again in the MPD for September in the US. So I think when it comes to Cyberpunk and 2077 and the future of the IP, we're going to see more games. They've confirmed we're going to see more stuff. Logan, did you check out Edge Runners on Netflix?
I have not. I was waiting until I started Cyberpunk to watch it.
Well, yeah, do it that way. Watch it first. If people haven't watched it, Cyberpunk Edge Runners on Netflix was incredible. It's incredible. Like it will pull at people's heartstrings a bit. What a series. Anyway, we'll get to the meaty stuff now because I've been rambling on a bit. Oh, Killer Instinct got a free next generation upgrade. Now, the reason why we're going to be talking about this quickly is because that launched 10 years ago. It launched with the Xbox One. It eventually got its Xbox One X update in 2017. And it's kind of been dead since. Fighting games don't have decade-long support online. Not typically. Unless you Smash Brothers and people play that online, that typically doesn't happen. But they came out last week, or might have been the week before. We're getting a huge anniversary update, next gen update, bunch of content. It looks like they're going to have a new season. Like Logan, you've kept up to date with all this stuff, yeah?
Yeah, and it went live not long before we hopped in on here. Like I started the update, or it calls it an upgrade, and it was like 45.67 gigabyte upgrade. So pretty substantial upgrade. And it's gonna have all the nerfs and the buffs for the characters, and it's gonna have 4K textures. They went all out for this, and they've reskinned it as Anniversary Edition instead of Definitive Edition. And they're making the holiday skins and stuff available to everybody who has the game. And like a few other changes that are way more than you would expect for an update. And the fact that, they brought back original team members. They have a head of Killer Instinct at Xbox now, which, why would you do that if you were just doing a token gesture update for a game? Like, clearly, Killer Instinct is something that they plan on keeping relevant going forward. So, I reckon this is a taste of things to come. And let's say within 3 years, you'll hear a Killer Instinct 2 announcement.
Yeah, they've kind of made some rumblings in the whole Killer Instinct fan base because people have been wanting a new Killer Instinct for a long time now, and I think it's about time. I think it's one of the few genres Microsoft like really needs in Game Pass because they've got everything covered. They've got first-person shooters, third-person shooters, a lot of RPGs. The only thing that's really missing is a fighting game. So, and plus, you look at all the intellectual properties they have now. They could have Diablo characters in a new one. They could have characters from Hi-Fi Rush. I think I'm advocating for Chai to be in everything because I think Chai is such a cool character and would suit so many different franchises as like a spin-off character or whatever. But they could just do anything. Like I've seen fan-made lists where Crash Bandicoot's fighting like Sabretooth or whatever, or Saber. Like that would be a funny thing to see, but I think Killer Instinct now more than ever is likely to get more attention for a sequel. I think that the studio was it Harmonix that made the game, or was it a different studio? Iron Galaxy.
For Killer Instinct,
Yeah.
it was originally Twisted Pixel, who got acquired by Amazon, and then they ceased to exist. Or no, it was Helix. Sorry, it was Helix that made it, and they got acquired by Amazon, and now they cease to exist. And Iron Galaxy took over from it and finished the game and kept it going all these years.
Well, it looks like we're going to be getting some new stuff, and one of the reasons why I want to mention it is that the game's 10 years old, and they're putting out this free update. And people, the reaction online's been like really positive. People love free stuff, and it's showing a game that people haven't played in a while some more love. So people are going to get back onto it. And one of the reasons I want to talk about is that while we were off last week because I was sick, um, The Last of Us 2 Remastered was announced.
Oh boy.
And just for giggles, I posted the trailer for the next gen upgrade for Gears 5, and all of the features that includes, high resolution textures, increased lighting, depth of field, screen space reflections, all that stuff. Long list, and at the bottom of the post I put free. I just did it as a joke, but it was actually a factual tweet, and the reaction online, chaos. Like, people should look at the replies. Like, it's obvious why I posted that, but people were saying I was salty for some reason, and I never understood why. Why would I be salty about a game I don't play getting a remaster for $70? Why? The reason I made a post about it is because it's clear that we should and can get these upgrades for free. Right? I'm not expecting full games for free, but games get support like this for free. If you're on PC and you have a 1660, and you decide, hey, I'm going to get myself a 4090. When you get that 4090 and you plug it in your PC, you don't have to pay more for the ultra game packs. You don't have to pay more for ultra textures. You just get it. And I think when it comes to video games on console, we should get that stuff for free. We got 1X upgrades for free. The PlayStation 4 Pro had upgrades for free. And now, because it's just a new generation, we have to pay? No. And I'm not a cheap person, but I think we should be getting this stuff for free. And again, Killer Instinct, free update after a decade. And I'm just saying, games that are 3 years old getting remasters. And by the way, I think The Last of Us 2 looks amazing. I think it's one of the best looking games, but the remaster looks no different. So, why are they doing that? Just want to put that out there. But yeah, Kill Instinct, free upgrade, really cool stuff. And I hope we see more free upgrades for games, because I think there's some games out there that still need them. I would love one for Quantum Break. I really would. I think, native 4K for that game would do a lot with 60 frames. Anyway, that's me rambling. You know what, Logan, we've still got some big topics to talk about. And Undead Labs, they're known for making State of Decay. They are making State of Decay 2. There's been rumours that we're going to see State of Decay 2 in 2026 or 2027, which is a while off. Obviously, the pandemic put a lot of games on hold. That's why certain games just haven't been announced yet, which we're going to be talking about in a bit. And, who knows? If it wasn't for the pandemic, GTA 6 probably would have been out by now. That's the reality of the situation. Rockstar North in Scotland, all those offices were shut down for over a year. So you have to think about studios around the world. There's a lot of games that have been put back 1, 2, sometimes even 3 years. And I think State of Decay is one of them. But anyway, it turns out State of Decay, they have another game in development. Now, we don't know anything right now, but I'm going to assume they use an Unreal Engine, because that's what they've used in the past, outside of, Crytek for the first one. Logan, what's your thoughts? Because you brought this to my attention.
Yeah, it was super fascinating when I saw that Undead Labs was working on multiple projects, State of Decay 3, which is, who knows when it's coming out, but should be good, and you know what to expect with State of Decay. Sounds like they're taking it up a notch, and hopefully, improve the visuals and performance, and add some more diversity to quests and some operations, and maybe have a little more meaty story. But I, I'm curious about it. I love zombie stuff. But the second game idea really, really piqued my interest because it's like, Xbox doesn't really have a horror studio like in house. I mean, Tango, yes, but they just did Hi Fi Rush. And, who knows what they're going to be doing next? Maybe a Ghostwire Tokyo 2, hopefully a Hi Fi Rush 2, maybe an Evil Within, but you don't know for sure. But the idea of having a zombie studio make not only a survival game, but what if they went full on dark and made a survival horror Resident Evil type game in the State of Decay universe, or a action game and like a Dead Rising type game, or something like that. Like I could totally see them, going for broke and going really, really out there with something zombie related that isn't the traditional State of Decay experience.
It's good you mentioned that. I think a State of Decay universe Resident Evil style game would actually be really cool because you have people that don't like open world games with inventory management, but you have a lot of Resident Evil fans out there that would be willing to pay for a brand new, third person, high quality. Because if you go on the Xbox store right now and same on PlayStation, there's a lot of third person horror games in a franchise called Outbreak, and it just seems like there's a brand new one out every other month for some reason. And I think when it comes to like high quality third person horror, we don't have many titles. Like new ones, you have the Resident Evil games, you have Dead Space remake and Alan Wake 2, and that's it. And you have Alone in the Dark coming out next year. But I think I think you're right. I think they would be good for a horror genre. They clearly have experience with Unreal Engine, and Unreal Engine's proven to be good at horror games. So you might be onto something. And I think while we're talking about that, is it came out a few hours ago, and I got the email. And if people haven't checked, check your email. It turns out there's going to be a bunch of major announcements at the Game Awards.
Hmm.
Now, earlier on in the year, Microsoft, I should say someone at Microsoft, but they probably fired by now, leaked, yeah, leaked Microsoft's future pretty much. There's a new controller coming out. There's a new console coming out next year. I'm personally going to get the controller, but there's also a bunch of games, and some of those games were listed to be out already. Now, obviously, this was an old list, but if you take away, or I should say, add the years that were added on because of the pandemic, there's certain games that should be out next year. And you may notice some, game names in the title. That isn't just clickbait, by the way. So in the list of leaked games was Indiana Jones. It was already announced, but Indiana Jones was announced in, I think it was January 2021, right? So that's over 2 years and nothing. We've heard absolutely nothing. And that studio haven't been working on a brand new AAA full game since 2017, right? Machine Games put out Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus, and we've heard nothing since. They did also work on that co-op game, but that was a smaller game. And it was listed anyway. Indiana Jones was listed to come out in 2022. So if you add the year with the pandemic and all that stuff, it looks like Indiana Jones is going to come out next year. Microsoft, they've clearly wanted to stay away from announcing games that are too many years out now, but they also are not going to announce games that are just within 12 months. Well, Microsoft's been a bit weird when it comes to 2024. They haven't said that, look, Avowed, Towerborn, HellBlade 2, and Flight Simulator 2024, they haven't said those are the only games next year. They've been very specific to not say that that's just our lineup for next year. So it kind of points to other games coming out next year. And I 100% believe that Indiana Jones is going to be one of those huge games. Phil Spencer said in the past that they have so many games in development that they have to announce them more frequently throughout the year, meaning showcases. And look, I'm not going to do that whole thing where, look, is there going to be a showcase? No. Microsoft has said they're going to be at the Game Awards with major, multiple announcements. And Indiana Jones, I think out of all of them, is the most likely thing. Logan, What's your thoughts? Because Indiana Jones to me is kind of the no brainer there.
I don't know. Like, I kind of have a different vibe to it personally, but to me, I think like Hellblade would be the safest bet because what have they consistently shown off? Like, I'm a person about following past behaviors as a predictor and other things like that. What have they shown off more than anything at the Game Awards? Hellblade related stuff. It's been a while since we've seen something Hellblade related. We haven't seen combat, which people are starting to get a little nervous about. I'm not. I trust Ninja Theory, but I understand that there's a desire for seeing some combat. To me, I think Hellblade 2 will be there in some capacity. Indiana Jones makes sense. I could see that. I could see them doing an announcement for especially if think that Sarah post was something a little more than just a fun gag. Maybe an Oblivion or a Fallout announcement of some sort. And then there's Avowed that's coming out some point. You could do that console thing if it was accurate. There's a whole bunch of stuff. I personally still think Indiana Jones is a little further out than next year, but if it's there, it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, you mentioned the 360 thing, and the other games that were on that leak list, which should have been out by now, was actually the Oblivion remake. It. Here's the thing with that Oblivion thing:
Mm-hmm.
it's been listed as a remake and a remaster in different documents. So I don't know. Let's just say a new Oblivion game. Um, it looks like that was meant to be out already. So it looks like that could be one of the games for next year. Oblivion has this like huge fan base. Like we've talked about this on the channel. I think Oblivion has the best Elder Scrolls main storyline. Right? I love
Agreed.
Yeah, I love Skyrim. I think Skyrim has the better side quests, better gameplay, better visuals, obviously. But when it comes to like the main story, Oblivion kicks Skyrim's ass every single time. Every single
Mm-hmm.
time. And plus you have the Oblivion portals, and we have these things now called SSDs. And imagine now you wouldn't have loading screens while walking into an Oblivion gate. Like that would be so cool, and it's something we can technically do now. Um, I think that's the most one of the most likely games. Gears 6 is one of the big ones. Um, the coalition have been working on multiple different projects for a while. They were helping with the Matrix Awakens demo, which, by the way, apparently you can't play now because Unreal have shut the servers off. So if you download the game, you can't actually play it, which is unfortunate. But they were working on that, and they were working on some other games. But apparently, two of them got shut down, or at least one of them did. And there's Gears 6. There's been rumors that Gears might be going back to its traditional roots because people have been wanting for years now a more horror centric Gears. We could call the first two Gears horror centric, and that first one especially, like people were calling that horror all the time. And I think Gears 6 is one of the possible ones. I can't see there being that much longer before Gears 6 is actually revealed. The Fallout 3 remaster is another big one. And before anyone says, hey, aren't you against remasters? No, I'm not against remasters. I'm against people being forced to buy remasters because they don't have access to the original versions. Right now, you can play Fallout 3 in 4K 60 on your Xbox Series X. You can, I think it's 1440p 60 on the Series S, and same with Oblivion. So like, if you don't want to buy a remaster or play it in Game Pass, you have access to the original. So you have the best of both worlds, and you have nerds like me that will play the new game because I love Oblivion, I love Fallout 3, two of my favorite games of all time, and I own the originals, so it's a win-win scenario. But when it comes to Gears, like I see all the time on Twitter, people clamoring for a new Gears game. It's just been way too long. You know, Gears 6 came out in 2019. We got the next gen update.
Wow, it's been that long.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been ages, and we got the next gen update in 2020. We also got the Hive Busters expansion, which was great expansion. But it's like it's been way too long, and with the whole development schedule being like 4 to 6 years for games. I don't know. I just feel like it may be time. It may be time. I think, the problem with the Game Awards is that every year they announce that there's going to be some things there, and people are just waiting for Aaron Greenberg to maybe put out a post saying temper your expectations. But the problem is, in the past, that's proven to mean nothing. I think it was like 2 years ago. Aaron Greenberg posted like the day before the Game Awards saying temper your expectations. And do you know what was announced at Game Awards? Perfect Dark.
Perfect Dark.
Yeah, and we got in-engine gameplay for HellBlade. So it's like we don't know what means what anymore. But the fact that they're putting these emails out now, I have extremely high hopes for this. And look, let's be honest. While we're talking about the Game Awards, people watch for the new games. Let's be honest. Like, nobody watches the Game Awards. And the people that watch the Game Awards to find out the Game of the Year, do it to gloat on Twitter. Right? That's what it is. And occasionally I might pop into other people's, live streams to see what they're talking about when it comes to the Game Awards. People only care about the Game of the Year award, right? And it's just for, combat on Twitter. People don't care about best art direction, best soundtrack, none of that stuff. Best esports award, by the way, those esports awards nobody cares about. But yeah, there's going to be a bunch of Xbox stuff there. Logan, while we're talking about the Game Awards.
Hey, oh, sorry. Can I add one thing? I
Yeah.
just remembered. I had a brain glitch and I completely forgot an obvious one. I think there is going to be something Spyro related because I had forgotten, but Crash, Team Rumble had announced that Spyro and I can't remember her name, this other character from the Spyro universe are coming to the game for Season 3, and it was going to launch on the 7th. And then the Game Awards retweeted it with some eye emojis, like implying some stuff. It's the 25th anniversary of Spyro. And all those Crash games have been announced at the Game Awards. So to me, Toys for Bob has a good relationship with Jeff Keighley. Seems like it's time, and I think there will be a Spyro thing at the show. How big, I don't know, but I think Spyro's going to be there.
You mentioned that there was a rumor of a new Spyro game about a year ago. I didn't really talk about it much because, given the sources, I didn't believe them. So who knows? I think Toys for Bob have proven that they can make really fun platformers. And if you look at it, we don't get many third-person 3D platformers now. Like, not really. So maybe that could be a thing. It's going to be a good thing. And look, like the Game Awards I've mentioned before is a glorified game showcase show with awards sprinkled throughout the place, right? And because that's what it is, right? Some people get really offended when I say that it's just a game showcase show, but people tune in to watch the games being revealed. And why is it some awards are given off stage? What's the point? The fact that they have they say the showcase. Say I keep calling it a showcase. They keep saying the award ceremony starts at X time. I think it's 12:30 UK time. Well, that's pre-show. It's been like that every few years. Every year, shall I say, where the Jeff Keighley is like, hey, look, the awards start at this time, and then it's bloody half an hour of pre-show BS where you have someone dressed as a shaver on stage because they're sponsored by Manscaped. Like, that's what it's like every year. And we're going to have some of the awards given during the pre-show. People remember this. I bet they give a bunch of those esports awards during the pre-show. So it's like, why have the awards? Like, it doesn't make any sense. I could ramble about this all day. But Logan, you mentioned before the show started, Jeff Keighley is not backing down from pretty much anything.
Yeah, you remember, or everyone here probably is aware of there was a little bit of a debate about how some things were revealed in the categories and what made up the categories, who's involved, and all that. And so a lot of people got really mad and upset, and justifiably so, about some stuff, and basically called him out in his process and said things need to change. And how can you justify this or that? And do you even read? Like, do you know what the definition of this actually is? And basically, he doubled down on the indie thing about Dave the Diver and was like, "Well, you see, indie is open to interpretation." Basically, he pulled an Obi-Wan and was like, from a certain point of view, like it's like get out of here, like you know what an indie is. Don't give me that. And so, basically, doubling down on that and then admitting that, okay, we've heard feedback and we are looking into maybe the idea of adding some more categories going forward. Not this year, but next year and beyond. Best supporting actor, which to me that seems universally approved. Like, there are lots of people who have a smaller role in some games that make a huge impact and are absolutely vital to the experience, even if they aren't the main protagonist or antagonist. So to me, that seems like a no-brainer ad. And then best remake remaster. That also to me seems like a no-brainer to add. Like, especially now that you have companies, you know, remastering games a few years later and shipping them out again, or resurrecting games from 20 years ago and completely changing them. Like, it's clear remakes are here and they're going to stay. So you might as well have a category for them. And that way, you don't have an issue like this year where Resident Evil 4 is incredible. It deserves its flowers. It's fantastic. I love that game. Was my first Resident Evil game to play all the way through. Love it. Masterpiece. But it got its flowers back in, when it came out. And the fact that they've remastered it or remade it, and yes, they did make some changes and improvements to the game, but fundamentally, Resident Evil 4 is Resident Evil 4. It's not like taking an N64 game and bringing it all the way to Xbox Series X generations and completely revamp tank controls, everything, and add story elements or do different stuff. Like, to me, it is an incredible remake of a game, tech wise, visually, some performance stuff. But to me, wouldn't. I wouldn't personally put it in my game of the year category. I wouldn't have it eligible on mine. So I think a remake remaster category is a no brainer. And it sounds like a lot of people felt the same way. And it looks like they're thinking about actually doing it next year.
Yeah, it's good you mentioned that because every time someone has a problem with the Game Awards, people just keep replying with, "Oh, you're just salty about Starfield." It's like, no, you mentioned before. I was shocked to find out there isn't a Best Supporting Actor award. Like that seems like the biggest no-brainer of a category because look at Alan Wake. How is the two actors that play Alan Wake not nominated? That blows my mind. You have these games where there's various like different side characters and stuff. Some of these side characters actually put out great performances, and it doesn't make any sense. And then you mentioned that the Dave the Diver thing. The how is indie developer now a up for interpretation thing? So technically shouldn't I don't know RoboCop Rogue City be nominated for best indie game because that's an independent title published by Nacon. Shouldn't that be the same rule? Why isn't Baldur's Gate 3 up for best indie? Is it because it has AAA graphics? Like it makes no sense whatsoever. And I think like every time I bring this up, I get some pushback, but I don't care. Like people look at the Game Awards as the definitive Game Awards for some reason, despite people tune in for the trailers. It's not the like I get it. It's Jeff Keighley's show, right? But to me, it's just another reason to show off new games. Before we continue and before I continue rambling about Jeff Keighley, because I've got some words. We have a new super chat. Thank you very much. $5 by Sanchez MTZ Gaming. I apologize if I butchered that. You think Resident Evil 4 is nominated just for so Sony gets The Last of Us 2 nominated next year? I mean,
Oh yeah, I joked with Jeff about that.
I mean, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I don't think that'll be the case, but I think Resident Evil 4 got nominated because Resident Evil 4 is such a beloved game, and like how many different versions have there been of Resident Evil 4? It was on the GameCube, the Wii, the PlayStation 2,
PS2.
yeah, Xbox 360, PS3, Wii U. Like it's been on everything, and the fact it got a remake, I think it just resonated with a lot of people. Personally, I would say best remake of the year would be Dead Space. Just what they did with that game, it's faithful to the original, and yeah. But anyway, it's a good theory, Sanchez. I think who knows? Isn't it a bit weird that best game adaptation category came up the second Sony started putting out video game adaptations with Uncharted last year, and then with The Last of Us this year? Like it is a bit weird how some categories just pop into existence just because. But yeah, thank you very much for the $5. It's just a weird Game Award ceremony. Like the fact that there's no best remaster remake award makes no sense. We get so many now. That makes more sense than pretty much anything. And like, look, Hogwarts Legacy is the big one. It blows my mind, and every time I bring this up on Twitter, I've been called some very vile things on Twitter just because I say I like Hogwarts Legacy. Hogwarts Legacy isn't nominated for anything, yet it's nominated for a Grammy because of its music. Like, how is it not nominated for Best Original Soundtrack? The music in that game is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And, the developers clearly know what they're talking about. There's, like, really niche jokes that only really big Harry Potter fans will get. Like, just, like, really small references. And, like, it's possibly one of the most faithful, like, recreations I've ever seen in a game. Like, Hogwarts looks like Hogwarts. It feels like Hogwarts. And it got nominated for nothing. It's available for the fan award, but let's be honest, that could just be manipulated by fanboys, so it doesn't really matter. I don't know. I just see the Game Awards being this Game Award ceremony that isn't about awards. Again, some of the awards are given off stage. And why? Why aren't they on stage? We never get an actual reason. I think Jeff Keighley once said it's to, keep the show a certain time. Well, okay, showcase less games. Why do you have to show games at a ceremony for awards? It's because nobody would tune in. Nobody. I always talk about the BAFTA Game Awards. It's this black tie event where, do you know, everyone that is nominating on the board, they have to play, and they check, by the way, the BAFTA Game Awards, people that run it, they check to see if everyone's finished it on their accounts. So if Avatar that comes out in December, if that game's nominated, the people running the event literally check to see if everyone nominating have played it 100%. Like that's how it works. But when it comes to the Game Awards, we don't know. Like we know Phil Spencer's on board, we know Kojima's on board, although that doesn't really make much sense because he's a developer. But it's weird. But I think that the Game Award, like Jeff Keighley, I don't understand why it's his award show, right? I've talked about this before, but it's like he has to be the face of everything. And I've noticed this a year ago that E3 disappears. So what do we get? Summer Games Fest, hosted by, created by Jeff Keighley. And then what do we get else in the summer? Gamescom, the German show, the German E3 basically. And what happens? Oh, we get Opening Night Live in LA, presented by Jeff Keighley. Jeff Keighley. And the fact he doesn't take aboard any criticism about the Game Awards is kind of worrying. Like he says now they might change things next year. I want people to remember the awards people want, right? Best remake remaster, best what was that one? Performance, best secondary performance or whatever, best supporting performance, and
yes,
and what else? Maybe less esports ones. Like why? That makes no sense. The fact that there's games missing that should be on some of those lists. Again, Hogwarts Legacy. It's weird, man. It's weird. And you know what? I've rambled. Look, have you got anything else to say before we change topics? Because I've been rambling.
I mean, all I'd say is like I can think of off the top of my head that most people, this is not a jab or slam at all at esports. It is a valid thing, and people are good at it and make money on it, make a living. People tune in and enjoy it. But I'd say for the general audience, most people are not as thrilled about those or want to hear about that at this event. Like, for example, when Xbox has a show and people are like, please don't have Fallout 76 and Elder Scrolls Online updates yet again, or Sea of Thieves updates yet again. Even though they have a large audience and those people care about it, it's, further updates. I'd kind of put it with that. Like, there's an audience for it, but I just don't think it's the place for it. And then they can easily do best supporting actor or actress, or have best new IP. That would be another workaround to have that, and best remake remaster, and all kinds of things that they could easily do, like art design and cinematography. Like, there's all kinds of categories. If they want to make this thing really serious, that they should do an ad to make it more professional. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, the first thing they can do is start taking aboard feedback, because the Game Awards has been around for years now, and I can't remember them taking any feedback yet. Like, at all. Like, there's been less ads. I know last year had less ads, and I thought last year's show was actually really enjoyable, but when you have this 3-hour show, and, like, again, you don't have the awards people want. You're giving awards off stage. Like, how do you give awards off stage for a 3-hour show? And by the way, the sales, right? We get like, look, the show needs to make money to survive. I get that. I'm fine with that. But like the fact that like there's like a mobile game advert every few minutes, and it's like, okay, install this on your phone. And it's like, no, I don't want this bloody phone game.
Stop smoking.
Yeah,
There's a ton of those as well.
yeah, the non-smoking adverts during the game show. It's like, what are you doing? Like, that's out of place. Advertise things like energy drinks, G Fuel, or whatever, but not smoking. That was so out of pocket last year. And while we're talking about out of pocket, Xbox game tax. It's the whole Xbox tax thing's been all over the place the past 2 weeks now. I can't even remember how it started. And like, I'll put this out there before I go deep with it. Do I think there's a broad blanket Xbox tax? No, I don't think there's a Xbox tax. I do think that there's media outlets that have certain people that work at those media outlets that let their personal bias interfere with their work. And I know, like, Destin from IGN made a video about it. I haven't seen it yet, but like, people have mentioned like how he wasn't bringing up like a lot of the points. And whenever people make fun of Xbox game tax, I keep calling it game tax for some reason, Xbox tax. They keep saying, oh, because Starfield isn't nominated. And it's like, no, that's not why people are bringing it up. I'll give some examples. Some little fun examples that people just seem to ignore. In September, IGN was putting out, this game is available on these platforms. They did it for Sea of Stars, Persona 3 Remake, and Lies of P. And each time, they forgot to list Xbox completely, right? And one of the people that work at IGN literally replied to me saying, hey, it was an issue with the database. I 100% understand, right? Database issues can happen. However, Persona 3 Remake was announced during an Xbox showcase. So shouldn't it have been in the database when it was announced? Shouldn't they have listed that literally as the first platform since it was their showcase? Because remember, Persona 3 Remake wasn't officially announced for other platforms. I think it was for about 3 days after. So in those 3 days, IGN didn't list that game at all for any platform. Bit suspicious, not gonna lie. Sea of Stars was announced for Game Pass about a week before it happened. Bit suspicious. Nobody was talking about Lies of P, because nobody really knew about it, and then it was announced to launch in Game Pass day one, and not listed for Xbox. Bit weird, not gonna lie, but hey, it was an accident. It was 100% an accident. And I've brought up other points, and I've seen this image float around because I noticed it years ago, and I mentioned it before. In 2014, Xbox got the ability to play digital media files on your Xbox One. And Kotaku, although I shouldn't be surprised, Kotaku put out an article with a picture of a ship, a pirate ship, the pirate flag, and said, Xbox One now lets you play pirated movies. And then a year later, the same feature came to PlayStation 4, and Kotaku put out an article saying the PlayStation 4 now lets you watch media files. And it was a PlayStation 4 logo, right? It was the same story told two different ways. That's media market manipulation. We see it all the time, but when it comes to gaming, remember, when it comes to gaming, we have to say it doesn't exist. Now, I don't think there's a blanket Xbox tax, but it's crystal clear that some people at some outlets have a problem where they let their bias, their personal preference, interfere with the work. Like, Logan, you want to talk about this as well. Like, people are making fun of Xbox tax. Does it exist? Like I said, I don't think it, quote unquote, exists, but I think people work at outlets that clearly don't do the job properly.
Yeah, like, I'll be real. I don't think there is a blanket Xbox tax that covers everything and all things Xbox related. Like, it appears on Xbox, so it automatically gets the score. What I do think is that I think other brands get a bump or get more benefit of the doubt than Xbox does. Like, you could call it a Nintendo boost or a Sony badge or whatever. It feels like, for whatever reason, that these other ones get, more credence and support for things. And then, you mentioned that pirate thing. Like, I saw a video the other day of someone basically trying to discount that as not anti-Xbox, but it's like, think about it. Pirating is not a positive connotation. It is a negative connotation. This isn't, Jack Sparrow and Swashbuckler. This is talking about things that are highly frowned upon and considered illicit in the gaming business. So to try to promote it as that front and center compared to, oh, you can just watch whatever you download, on your device, is very intentional. That is not a, like, oh yeah, I get to watch this. No, and people trying to spin it as that, it's like, get out of here. You know what you're doing. Stop that. And careful how I phrase this, but another thing is, there are certain people I wouldn't expect to go all in on this and really beat around the bushes and go like a full on multi-billion-dollar, investigation type thing into this. Like, think about it. In this industry, writers got to look out for themselves. And if you're working at a place that people have started to raise questions about or have associations with, or you have colleagues that people have called into question, or other things, wouldn't it probably be a bad idea for you to really kick up that nest too much? Like, I understand people calling some folks out and saying they're not doing 100% on that. And yeah, I get it. It looks that way. But at the same time, you do have to look out for yourself. And so for some people, I understand why they're kind of trying to downplay it or be tepid about it and kind of just don't want to touch that topic. I get it from that standpoint. But it does seem like there's some really weird stuff going on. You have Metro UK basically saying, like, oh, Hi-Fi Rush was incredible and I wanted to give it this score, but Xbox's lineup besides that sucked, so I gotta dock it. Or, you know, some company crying and putting out posts like, woe is me, we didn't get a code. And then they finally get a code, and then lo and behold, they absolutely slammed the game. Shocking. And, it's like, well, why do you think maybe you weren't a high priority for a code? Think about it. So there is stuff, but at the end of the day, I think it's good everybody brought awareness to it. I think it's good that it's out there, people are talking about it, but I don't think people should focus on it, and I don't think people should make this 100 years war thing. Like, it's out there, it's known about, things are the way they are, and be cognizant of it, but just move on. If you keep whining about it and keep talking about it and focusing on it 100%, it starts making you look whiny and, kind of like it's not fair. Like, yeah, it's not fair. And it sucks, but it's the way it is. And just you gotta combat it somehow and do better and work around it and work with what you got. But just constantly focusing on it and whining about it is not helpful. It's been brought to the forefront. People are aware of it, talking about it. That's good. I think it would probably be wise to just try to move on and focus on going forward.
Yeah, I mean, like people always come up with different excuses or reasons or whatever. And look, like you said, people in the industry, they have to protect each other, because if one person says, "Yep, it's a thing," then they are all at risk of being guilty. But you mentioned Metro, and I just had a quick look because this is hilarious. This is an actual title, by the way. RoboCop Rogue City is much better than Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. What does that even mean? Like, and it reminds
They
me.
both have guns,
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah. They both first person shooters, and that's where it ends. That's literally where the similarities end, and it just brought me back to when Starfield was out, and every game was being compared to Starfield. Alan Wake 2 is much better than Starfield. Again, what does that even mean? you know, and look at Spider-Man. Spider-Man was glitchy and buggy as hell, but nobody talked about it, and it didn't get docked points because of its bugginess. But Starfield got talked about because of bugs, even though it's the least buggiest Bethesda game to date. And let's be real, if Starfield had launched as a PlayStation exclusive, can they realistically say it would be looked at differently, or it wouldn't be looked at differently? Just putting it out there. But as a blanket term, Xbox tax, is it a thing? No. But there's some media outlets I think have actually gotten better over the years. GameSpot can be good sometimes. I think Games Radar has been decent sometimes, but the IGNs, it's their responsibility to be fair, and I think that's all people want. If you're gonna report one thing for one game and one company, shouldn't you be like that with all companies? And I don't know, if I was an employee for IGN or whatever media, a game media company, being questioned about your allegiance or ethics is obviously going to be a big issue. But yeah, I think those people should really ask themselves, why are they being asked this? They can just boil it down to fans being salty or angry or whatever. But the reason why people keep bringing these things up is because time and time again, things don't look fair. And that's the problem. And yeah, it's been an exhausting topic because people are joking about it, people are making fun of it, but people say there's an Xbox tax for a reason. And I think the second people start only just making jokes about it, saying, "Oh, lol, Xbox tax," it's like, no, people are bringing it up for a reason. Again, I don't think there's a blanket Xbox tax, but I do think there's some companies that clearly look. People have seen that picture floating around of that guy from IGN, who hosts an Xbox-centric podcast. When Rise of the Tomb Raider was an Xbox exclusive for a year, he tweeted it out saying it was terrible. Exclusive shouldn't be a thing. And then when Final Fantasy VII Remake was announced to be exclusive, he literally said it was genius. So which is it? Is it okay? Is it not okay? Is it only okay if some companies do it? It seems like there's two different rule sets. It's okay one minute and it's not the next. It's okay for Sony to buy a bunch of companies, but not Xbox. And people say, but publishers are different. I have to ask, where is it wrote down that publishers are different? Like buying 8 studios and then one buying a publisher, what's the difference? Like people will mention the amount of money, but that shouldn't matter. Anyway, we've rambled enough today. It's been a great show. Again, best chat ever. Thanks for the support, everyone. And I think, I've mentioned this before, the chillest chat. Like the fanboys don't really show up. People stay on topic and, relax. And I like to keep the show relaxed because I think like every so often online, it's just filled with arguing. People are arguing all the time online. Twitter is the same. People are arguing about gaming. And like, look, people just need to take a back seat, take a step back and think it's just gaming, right? People make it personal and attack others, and it's not really worth it. It's a bit weird. Logan, have you got anything else to say before we close out the show?
No, just I'm excited to see what is revealed at the Game Awards because that's why I'm tuning in. To be honest.
Yeah, let's be honest. That's why everyone's tuning in. We want to know release dates again. I think before we close the show, I do think we're going to see things like Avowed and HellBlade. At least HellBlade getting a release date, like an actual release date. We have another super chat by Sanchez Gaming. Thank you very much. For $2, he says, "What do you think of the PS lawsuit by the CMA?" In the past in the UK, there's been multiple lawsuits with companies like that. If I remember correctly, one happened in 2009 with the PSP. It happens. It happens. It just depends whether it'll go through or not, because a lot of people just look at the amount being offered. So the amount that the lawsuit's over. I think it's $8 billion. It could go through. But I know people got money for PlayStation Vita with that court case in the UK. So it's all up in the air, right? It can go either way. Like we've mentioned in the past, like is the CMA protecting Sony? It's like the truth is these organizations, they are always after going for someone, always, because that's pretty much how they make money. You won't ever hear a story like once the CMA PlayStation thing goes away, they're going to be looking for a different company to attack and get money, whether there's an issue or not. That's their job. It just depends. Are they actually attacking a problem that exists? And will it happen? We'll know in the next few months. Again, I don't think this will be something that's dragged out for years. It'll be something that's like 6 months. Logan, what do you think of that? Because that's actually a good point.
Yeah, it's a good point, and I, I'm curious to see if it goes through. I think it will, because the UK in particular has been really really adamant about going after companies that you know overcharge and underdeliver or do some things that kind of violate the maybe not rules but the spirit of the rules on some stuff. So it wouldn't shock me if it goes through. And on a side note related to that, basically the UK is wanting to restructure CMA to where they are after the ABK thing. Basically, the UK came to the conclusion that that whole process was not beneficial to the UK or its reputation, and it was a muddled mess, and they want to change how they process things like that in the future. So I thought that was an interesting side note.
Yeah, that's actually a good point because in the UK, our government's wanting to make the UK a tech-centric country where we're growing in tech, but with the stuff they're doing, we can't. So it's a bit weird. But anyway, we'll talk about this if there's any updates like next week. But yeah, anyway, thanks for bringing that up and thanks for the $2, Sanchez. Very, very good points because who knows, it might be one of those things that's in the news for a long time. Hopefully not, because we don't need another 21 months of CMA, FTC, ABC talk. It's all very tiring. Anyway, everyone in chat's been awesome today. Great week. We will be back at the same time next week, next Tuesday. I have a video either coming out tomorrow or Thursday, depending on when I finish it. Hopefully tomorrow, which I hope people enjoy, about upcoming games. Anyway, We'll be back next week. Again, everyone chat's awesome. Peace, everybody. And we are